particularly versatile Pokemon, given you're only ever going to run electric offensive moves, and a lot of electric offensive moves at that. Because unlike Regidrago and Drago, electric has some really strong stuff. Volt Switch, in Electroweb, in Thunder Cage, these are all really interesting support moves that, like, yes, they all are the electric type, but thanks to Transistor, you don't want other coverage moves anyway. I talked about this a bit with like Regidrago, but like you pretty much like aside from you, like electric is going to be your best bet most of the time anyway. So I think Regieleki can work in a bunch of different team compositions. I think it can work with Tapu Koko. I think it can work without Tapu Koko. I think it can be supportive. I think it can be offensive. I'm really interested to see how this Pokemon does. And oh yeah, you can also like if you really wanted to. I know I said you don't really want to Dynamax it, but like go for it. Like go like Thunderbolt, Fury Impulse, or sorry, Rising Voltage, and then Volt Switch. And if you want to Dynamax this thing, like go for it, right? Like I'm not gonna stop you. You want to Dynamax this thing, like now you can set up your own electric terrain and have like Rising Voltage at the end, right? Like you can Dynamax a set like this, and like you want to see how much. The thing about the reason you don't really want to drop Dynamax Regieleki is that max Rising Voltage is the same as Rising Voltage in electric terrain. But like yeah, like you're doing damage to this thing. You know, like you 2 KO Amoonguss. You like if Amoonguss switches in. Well, okay, that's not really a great example. If Amoonguss switches in after you've already set up electric terrain, you can 2-shot it. Kind of a weird example, not really a great one, but like yeah, like a lot of Pokemon don't really. Oh, here that's how you KO Cresselia. Well, you don't KO Cresselia, but yeah, like wait, that's wrong. Rising Voltage is 140 base power. That's wrong. Use Thunder instead.
Four fucking mirror shots and none of them get the tech debuff.
Right? Please help me. Yeah.
When someone uses it on you, they get it
It's 100%. No, it's 100%.
Oh yeah.
Given how bad was with regards to coverage, I think it's a really versatile Pokemon that can do a lot of different things. So this is a Pokemon I look forward to using. I love the Regis. I'm excited to see how this one actually plays out. Actually, I believe I was looking at the use stats, and as you can see, Regieleki is actually fifth right now. Some people are figuring out how to use it, but like Electroweb, Volt Switch, Thunder Cage, Protect. I would trust some other moves as well with this, but like, yeah, like, yeah. You can see it's paired with Tapu Koko about a fifth of the time. So it's people are using it. People think it's good right now. So yeah, I think Regieleki is super cool. That's not all I have to say about it, but I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know which Pokemon you want me to play next, because I haven't decided just yet. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Now we have a somewhat spooky Pokemon for October. ExpressVPN is the #1 VPN service because of their ease of use and tons of premium servers located in many countries. And this feature in particular is very useful because some content like streaming services are blocked depending on where you are in the world. For example, Hulu is only available in the US, but with ExpressVPN, you can just watch shows on Hulu, like one of my favorite exclusives, Solar Opposites, even when you're in another country. You can do this and more when you sign up with ExpressVPN. Find out how you can get 3 months free by clicking the link in the description box below. expressvpn.com/fallswipegaming. And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. A typing full of weaknesses alongside poor bulk did not necessarily mean a Pokemon couldn't succeed in OU. For example, nobody would consider Blaziken a defensively sound Pokemon, but between its good enough speed and brutal offensive power, it carved out a niche. Shiftry had Blaziken's exact speed stat, but its offenses unfortunately fell short of making it worthwhile in the standard metagame, as it was too slow to effectively Swords Dance, and it wasn't nearly threatening enough without a Swords Dance besides Explosion. But a non-boosted Explosion Pokemon wasn't hard to come by. Thus, Shiftry dropped to UU. Its lack of useful physical moves and underwhelming speed combined with its frailty, which was preyed on by common Pokemon like Kangaskhan and Scyther, led it to shun Choice Band and Swords Dance sets, instead opting for a Sunny Day Chlorophyll set, which allowed it to bypass its speed issues and use its Grass Stab, which let it destroy common Pokemon like Walrein and Golem, while threatening defensive Vileplume with sun-boosted hidden power fire. With Explosion, it could still take out just about anything, especially since the tier's normal resists were frightened of Solar Beam. Shifttree's main issue was that it offered very little in the way of defensive utility, making it difficult to fit on teams. Needing a free turn to set up its Sunny Day could also be exploited, since grass-weak Pokemon wouldn't be immediately threatened out by it. Nevertheless, with team support such as being fit on a team with other Sunny Day users like offensive Vileplume, combined with heads-up play, Shifttree could pose a massive threat. Shifttree also had a small niche in Ubers. Chlorophyll abuse was a lot easier when the sun was permanent and was set up by the amazing Groudon. With Sun active, it outsped the entire tier, even the occasional Deoxys speed, and threatened several of the metagame's most dangerous Pokemon with its Choice Band Shadow Balls, including Deoxys Attack, Mewtwo, and the Latitwin. Its powerful Explosion removed even the bulkiest neutral targets, such as Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Deoxys Defense, as well as Kyogre attempting to replace the sun with Rain. Now Shifttree has issues like massive frailty and struggling against the many bulky steals popular in the tier, necessitating either Magneton or lures like Blissey, hoping to wall its nasty plotted boosted attacks, as well as immediately threaten Pokemon like Palkia and Darkrai that could take unboosted hits. Shifttree certainly had its issues, as its frailty made it tough to get on the field, and it was completely walled by Dialga and Nidoran unless it ran the vastly inferior Swords Dance set, which used Seed Bomb for Grass Stab and could no longer immediately one-hit KO Groudon, nor could it fit Explosion. This made for some debilitating trade-offs no matter what set it chose. However, Shifttree was still an NU Pokemon that was also viable in Ubers. That in and of itself was an impressive achievement, and honestly, there aren't many cooler things in Pokemon than Mewtwo getting completely crushed by Shifttree. Despite Black and White bringing permanent sun to OU, Shifttree shared the same fate as many other chlorophyll grass types, having to suffer the indignity of watching Venusaur also get the ability and tower over everyone else. Shifttree's ability to instantly threaten the Latitwins was unique among chlorophyll Pokemon, but it wasn't enough for it to see any usage. Thus, it tumbled through the tiering rung down to NU once again, where it was absolutely terrific. Even better than the previous generation. It really hated the 5th generation's Explosion nerf, but funnily enough, it was easier to fit onto teams this time around. It wasn't restricted to use on Sun teams. Sure, it was good on those, but its ability to fit on other kinds of teams and not need Sun to set up for it was one of the things that made it excellent. Both mixed and Swords Dance sets were quite difficult to handle. It was initially dismissed for completely being walled by Mandibuzz, but it dipped into its move pool and became a terrific Mandibuzz lure. Mixed sets could run Hidden Power Ice over Nature Power and 2-hit KO the Buzzer on the switch with Stealth Rock up, while Swords Dance sets could blow past it with a boosted Rock Slide. Being a grass type that could crush Mandibuzz was a trait unique to Shifttree, as was its Sucker Punch to prevent revenge kills from Scarfers. For example, Cacturne could do the latter, but not the former, and Sawsbuck wished it could do either. Shifttree was criminally underrated in Gen 5 NU, and if the tier had had a longer lifespan, it almost surely would have shown why its untiered placement was a huge mistake. Many top players were making use of Shifttree's talents at the end of the generation, which didn't leave enough time for the rest of the player base to catch on. However, when it was used, Shifttree proved it was a complete terror. Swords Dancing as a Alomomola ran in fear, then Rock Sliding the Mandibuzz and Sucker Punching the Charizard was a thing of beauty, almost as satisfying as leading off with Leaf Storm and KOing the Alomomola staying in and trying to Toxic on the Swords Dance, while still limiting faster Pokemon's ability to revenge kill, thanks to Sucker Punch.
Little by little, even big things change. Mountains, valleys,
Shifttree did end up in NU once again, but that was just fine because once again it was an excellent Pokemon. Its primary set was the offensive Defogger, which immediately threatened a vast amount of the tier with Leaf Storm and Knockoff, including crucial defensive staples such as Rhydon and Lantern, as well as offensive Pokemon like Samurott and Rotom. Once it hit the field, it could either capitalize on the switches and force to clear hazards, or if that wasn't required, it could simply spam its stabs and punch holes in the other team, either with the power of Leaf Storm or with the item removing effect of Knockoff, which still hit quite hard. As always, Sucker Punch prevented faster Pokemon like Swellow from comfortably revenge killing it. Shifttree didn't even need to run Defog if its team didn't require it. For example, if it was used on a Garbodor Spike stacking team, and could instead run Explosion, which was still quite powerful, but whose main purpose was to block opposing Defog, thus preserving the entry hazards that his teammates Garbodor laid down. Basically, that last slot was either using Defog or preventing Defog. Shifttree had expanded its game to become a critical part of the entry hazard board, and this meant it was used on more teams than ever before. Now, while the offensive Defogger or Exploder was its primary set, it certainly wasn't the only one. The Swords Dancer had never been more powerful, as in addition to Knockoff as Dark Staff, its Sucker Punch was no longer resisted by faster steals like Kling Clang. Shifttree solid Sword Scarf set, which had terrific surprise factor. It could outrun and rock slide an unsuspecting Charizard or Scyther, or destroy unwitting Jinx or Mismagius with knockoff. Although the set being surprising was potentially game-breaking, it wasn't just good because it was surprising. Its increased speed meant it had more opportunities to threaten the opposing team. It also had the opportunity to use the more powerful Leaf Blade instead of Seed Bomb as its grass staff, which it couldn't on the Swords Dance set since it was incompatible with Sucker Punch. Scarf Explosion was also incredibly useful in thwarting healthy Pokemon that would otherwise take a hit, such as Lilligant, Magmortar, and Tauros. Overall, ORES NU Shiftry fit onto many a team, with its terrific utility in either using or preventing the fog, and posed an offensive threat with many different sets. As a result, it was one of the best Pokemon in the tier. Shiftry's a curious little fellow in doubles, just as in singles. There's no denying that Shiftry is a distinctly mediocre chlorophyll sweeper. Its base 100 attack is good but not great, and its terrible bulk leaves it incredibly weak to spread moves, such as Blizzard and Heat Wave. However, Shiftry is able to carve out a remarkably small niche for itself as the potential fastest fake out in the West. Under Sun, nothing can really outgun Shiftry, giving it a potential to disrupt the field with a consistency that can't be beat. Aside from that, Shiftry comes packing a nice little Swiss Army knife package of support tools, such as Tailwind and Knockoff. Shiftry thus can fit a curious role, a Pokemon who uses Sun to be an additional auxiliary support for its team, while still threatening some pressure purely by merit of its speed. Shiftry hasn't seen much top tournament usage in VGC history, largely owing to the superior options for a Sun abuser such as Venusaur and the difficulty of pulling Sun off in general. Nevertheless, it has Mega Charizard Y. Turn 1 Sun was vital for fake out. That boost would then allow Steven's huge powerhouses such as Mega Salamence, Mamoswine, and Porygon Z to fire their artillery liberally, making for a hyper-offensive playstyle. The next year, Nick Yoroma managed to put Shiftry to the test in the unrestricted format as well, utilizing it with the ever-present Groudon. Nick's team was a balanced mix of offensive threats such as Mega Salamence and Yveltal, along with other support mons to ensure his son could stay on the field, such as Crobat and Gastrodon. Shiftry appreciated being used alongside Yveltal, where the latter's ability Dark Aura could actually make an impact on the field and boost Shiftry's own offensive prowess. Other than that, however, Shiftry has stayed in the shadows. Even when Sun is viable, Shiftry isn't really where anyone's mind goes immediately, and it's hard to blame them. Shiftry brought its 3 Gen 6 and U sets over to Gen 7 PU. Despite being a tier lower, Gen 7's power was fairly extreme, and thus Shiftry wasn't able to significantly impact the metagame's landscape. Z-Crystals made absorbing knockoff easier.
That's it.
Oh no, it's spreading.
Helping things. However, despite its shortcomings, Shiftry was still a decent Pokemon. Avoiding knockoff's item removing effect was still not easy for most teams, and Leaf Storm was as strong as ever, especially with how most of the tier's grass resist didn't want to eat a knockoff. It was a solid offensive defogger, since it threatened common Spellbrockers in Mudsdale and Regirock. It could also ditch the fog and function as an excellent Alolan Sandslash lure with low kick. The set's main issue was strong competition with Skuntank, the tier's premier offensive defogger, who didn't pack knockoff or scare stealth rockers like Shiftry did, but brought an absolute ton of utility to its team with Pursuit, the ability to check the excellent Victor Go, and the nasty parting gift of Aftermath. Shiftry's advantages were still useful though. It just wasn't as easy to slap on a team as Skuntank was. As a Swords Dancer, Shiftry struggled to stand out in a tier packing the mighty Absol, and his Choice Scarf set was also largely outdone by Skuntank. As a result, Shiftry dropped to untier. This was probably a little on the harsh side, seeing as Shiftry was perfectly usable, but those are the cruel winds of the tiering run for you. At the time of this video, Shiftry is in RUVL. It was among the first wave of bans in RU when the tier was still in its fledgling stages, as it was an absolutely ferocious Sunsweeper. Generation 8 gave it 2 incredible moves. The first was Solar Blade, a physical Solar Beam counterpart that was even more powerful at a shocking 125 base power. The second was Heat Wave, whose scorching power and coverage complemented Shiftry's stats beautifully. In addition, the lack of crystals and megas made its knockoff even more brutal. Topping this monster set off was Growth, which was a simultaneous Swords Dance and Nasty Plot under Sunlight, and allowed Shiftry to shred